I would like to begin by making a statement. I am me, and you are a different person. Okay, now it sounds really trivial, but you must understand this is fundamental to what I'm going to be talking about. So I just hope everyone keeps this in mind throughout my speech. Now, there's been a growing interest in connecting the world, from international music festivals to sports competitions like the World Cup, to world expos and world summits. One of these important aspects is international education. And we ask ourselves, what is an international education? Okay, this is the mission statement of the United World Colleges, which is probably one of the most international communities that you will find. To make education a force to unite people, nations and cultures for peace and a sustainable future. And the idea is that if you shorten the distance between people from different cultures and countries, and you put them together to learn and to live together, by increasing the interaction, you increase the chances for them to understand each other and then achieve peace and a sustainable future. So the idea is great. And it's not just the idea. Even as an individual, as a student, you enter a community where you meet someone from across the world, and he's so different from you, not just by culture, but also as in his personality. And you see, it's such an interesting experience, and you can grow so much from it. Now, I've studied in TEDxUWCAdriatic for about 2 years now, and I've been through the international education. And today, I would like to share with you both sides of the story. Sure, it is great, but there are also some truths. And the first thing that I've learned is that as much as culture is a strength, culture can also be a limitation. What do I mean by that? Okay, so let's take language to be an example. So, as international as an education is, there needs to have a common language to be used to teach lessons, to teach subjects. So for UWC, it's English. Now, I've encountered many times where language is a barrier to a person's opportunities. For example, I have a friend from Iran who loves chemistry, and back home, he's incredible in chemistry. He's brilliant, he's the top of his class. But when he came here and he started learning chemistry in English, he told me it was as if he was learning chemistry all over again, because he's not used to the language. And it's true. And you compare it to someone else who is perhaps a native speaker and who has been studying chemistry in English all his life. He might not be as bright in chemistry as my Iranian friend, but it seems that he has an upper hand. So language is a barrier. Now, I want you all to look at the other perspective, that after 2 years, people leave here with, if they've never spoken English at all, after 2 years, they leave with a decent, in fact, if not a great command in English, and it helps them in the future. But what I want everyone to acknowledge is that it's not so simple to just put people together and then achieve intercultural understanding, because language is a barrier. Second is background, your upbringing, where you come from. Now, for example, I come from a Chinese background, and from young, I've always been taught to be quiet, to be silent, because it has a lot of value in being humble, and it's being thoughtful, and it's being respectful. And so I don't really show or share my opinions or my talents, because I think it's being arrogant. Now, so perhaps, I played the drums for a really long time, and I think I'm pretty good at it, but I don't tell people about it, because it's part of my culture, right? And you take someone else, from the other hand, from another culture, who is for them, it's so open and it's so easy to share their talents and abilities. Now, when an opportunity presents itself, if a band needs a drummer, they're probably going to choose this person. It's not that he's better or he's like more charismatic. It's just that he shows his talents. But then at the same time, I take pride in being quiet, because I want to let my actions speak louder than my words. You see? So then there's the dilemma right here. So I thought, okay, maybe let me change. Let me try to show a bit of myself to give me more opportunities. But then it made me ask the question, am I less of my culture right now? Have I lost a bit of myself? And does shortening the distance between cultures make you lose your own cultural identity. And the third thing, it's conflicting opinions. One thing that I've realized is that people come from such wide spectrums of the globe that their opinions are incredibly different. Now, I've had this interesting conversation with my roommates. It's about the idea of the world without borders. So imagine the world map, okay, and there's no lines, and there's no colors, everything is just there. There's no borders between countries. Now, for me, I would think, well, I don't want that, because if you have no borders, then you don't have culture, because everyone doesn't pride themselves in being unique. Where is the difference? But then on the other hand, my friend from Israel, he would say, no, I would prefer a world without borders. And I would say, how could you say that? I can't even imagine it, because coming from Singapore, culture is very, very important to me. And we're trying to develop that aspect of our community. But to him, he's seen the problems of how identifying yourself and labeling yourself and priding yourself in culture has caused so much conflicts. And then at the end of the day, we leave the conversation believing in our own, and just like, I know what he's thinking about, like I know what I'm thinking about, and we just leave. And we agree to disagree, right? It's common. But then you ask yourself, is that really intercultural understanding? Is that seeing the value in his opinion and trying to adopt it in your own opinion to give a different perspective? You know, it's as if I walk away from this and I don't gain anything, it's as if I'm reading a book in a different language. Yeah, it's there, and I've done it. I've not gained anything from it. It has not changed me. You know, is that really intercultural understanding? And it's not just opinions that are different. It's also like where you come from. People come from a wide spectrum of countries and socio-economic backgrounds, and many students view the international education as different opportunities. Right? The school might say, yeah, we come here to promote peace and a sustainable future. So for one student, he might think, yeah, it's investing time in socializing and being with people and growing interculturally. On the other hand, someone from perhaps coming from a financially challenged background or not such a well-to-do environment, he might use this opportunity to better himself, to give him a better opportunity at a university, at a job, at a future. Right? So now some people might argue, they say, okay, well then you shouldn't bring these people here because all they're going to do is study. But at the same time, you can't say that, because if they use this opportunity to study really hard, get really good grades, go to a university and get the best that they can be, and then they go home to the local communities and they improve the local communities and they give better chances for people in their communities to give them the same opportunities that they were given. You can't argue with that. Right? So then there's a dilemma here again. There's always both sides of the story. Right? What do you do? And that's why it's very interesting to ask yourself, what is the ideal UWC, or in this case, what is the ideal international student? Because it is very, very hard to define. Now, the third point that I've realized that no matter where you are, there are some universal problems faced by students, whether you're an international student or you're a local student. And that is time and energy. Now, everyone has a limited amount of time. And this place demands a lot from us, and therefore we have to choose what we want to do. And also, if we had so much time, we wouldn't have enough energy to do everything. So, like, there has been many, many occasions, and where I've, at the end of the day, from my demanding schedule in the morning of classes to activities, loads of activities and discussions in the afternoon, at the end of the day, I'm so tired, I'm exhausted. So I go to the cafeteria and I get my food and I'm thinking, where am I going to sit down, right? And I end up sitting with people that I feel most comfortable with. Because it's true, like you want to have this intercultural aspect, but at the same time you want to enjoy yourself a bit. You want to be with people that you feel comfortable. It's only natural. And I've also realized that sometimes it is natural to be with people from similar cultures. When I walk into the cafeteria, I've seen occasionally the Asians sitting together and the Africans sitting together and the Latin Americans sitting together. There's nothing wrong, because it's true. We naturally gravitate to people we feel more comfortable with. And sometimes it is people from our own culture, which then hinders intercultural understanding because you don't give yourself the opportunity to learn from someone else. Okay? But then again, two sides of the story. Sometimes people don't connect with culture, but with personalities and common interests. And so often I also see friend groups from I have one Norwegian, and I have one Peruvian, and I have one French, and they all just sit around and they talk about common interests. And that is intercultural understanding and interaction. What I want to make everyone recognize is that there's always the strengths and also the limitations, right? So I've talked about this holistically, the international education, and so you ask yourself, what does it really give? And what I think it gives is choice. Because you have so many different cultures here, and so many different personalities, and you see. So, for example, you look at someone and you say, yes, this is one great character trait that he has, or one great ability that he has, and that's what I want for me, in my own situation and in my own culture. It might vary from culture to culture, what you want and what you value, but it gives you the opportunity to see, and then you choose how you want to develop yourself. I could be the Asian who is really, really good at math. Because it's in my culture to have a very strong mathematical background, and I take pride in that. But at the same time, I learn how to play the guitar, like a Spanish, and I play the flamenco guitar, and it's incredible. I become a very dynamic person. Now, some people might think, okay, then does that mean we don't look at the culture and we just look at the individual? We just look at their personality and, independently of where they come from. But then, at the same time, that's not what we should do. Because what an international education does, it gives us the opportunity to see how the culture has been integrated into the person's personality and traits. You don't just learn salsa dancing and just do salsa dancing. You see how the Latin American grows up doing salsa dancing, and it's in their blood. And that's how you learn. You really infuse the culture in yourself. It's not just about playing an instrument and making music, but it's also listening to the music. You see how the Cubans have grown up in such a musical environment, and they love the music, and it's or even African Americans, it's in their soul, how they play the music. So it's not looking at traits and abilities independent of the culture. It's seeing how the culture has influenced and how it has dominated the personality trait or the ability. And that's why I say it is important to recognize that diversity is not a strength. Diversity is an opportunity to be strengthened. If you have a box of colored pencils, okay, it's the same as having a box of all red colored pencils if you don't use it. You must use the box of colored pencils to create a picture, and that's using the diversity that you have to do something better, to make something more unique. It's also about embracing the fear that you might lose a bit of your culture to gain from so much more. Or, it's not even losing. You might even just add on stuff to your own culture, and we become very culturally dynamic individuals. We see people like a bit of Spanish, a bit of Asian, a bit of African. We become very, very holistic. So what an international education inspires is hope in youths to aspire to better themselves the way they want, based on personality and situation, and be at peace in self-growth and collective growth as a community. Now, I'm sure you guys have a lot of opinions of yourself, of me and of yourselves and about everything that I've said, but I would like to end off by asking everyone to just take a moment to step back and just look at me, okay? From this international education, I've grown so much, and I've become, such a culturally diverse person. I was the Asian guy who was so shy of giving my opinion, of telling people that I could play the drums, to now I'm taking the initiative to share my opinions and thoughts in a TED Talk. And this is cultural understanding. It's intercultural understanding. It's becoming better. And international education has inspired me to be confident in the way that I want to develop myself. And it has also given me a lot of faith in myself and in other people around me. That as we grow as culturally dynamic individuals, we make possible the dream of a better, more peaceful, and more sustainable tomorrow. But that's just me. You are a different person. Thank you.